Morning, everyone. I'm Jenny Miller with Pesci Publishing and Bridge City Books. And today I'm joined by licensed marriage and family therapist, Annie Chen. She's the author of the new workbook, I Want to Connect, Rewire Your Nervous System for Stress Resilience and Secure Attachment, which is officially out today. Super exciting. Thanks, Annie, for joining us today. And before we get kind of right into the Q&A, can you just take a little bit of time to tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you wrote this book and kind of your goals with it?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I realized I put my copy of the book right under my computer, so I've got it here too. 5 years ago, I published the Attachment Theory Workbook, and since then, I've gotten all sorts of questions about attachment. Particularly, I think what the first book did was really laid out different attachment styles, how they work with each other, and just some helpful tips around being in relationship with somebody who has avoidant attachment or somebody who is more anxiously attached. And so that was a wonderful journey, and I got to talk with so many folks about their own relationship journeys and their struggles with attachment. And so everybody wanted to know, how can I be securely attached? This is kind of like the thing that we might say is worth working towards. And so I've done a lot of thinking about that, and I think this was the book that I wanted to write to answer that question. And of course, it's not like the switch goes on, the switch goes off. I'm securely attached now. I'm not. But I think if you have the right framework, it can be more motivating and kind of inspiring to, work on yourself and kind of lead yourself down that journey of improving relationships and making your own relationship experience less stressful and more rewarding.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people think that once they figure out their attachment style, that's it. Like that it's set in stone and that's how they're going to be. And so I love that this book kind of teaches you that no, you can like rewire, as you say on the subtitle, rewire your nervous system and kind of learn how to form healthier attachments moving forward. So I love that. All right, let's take our first question from the audience. Let's see what people are dying to know. Oh, this is a great question. Can you explain the concept of stress resilience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Okay, so this is my definition of stress resilience or my concept of it is that it's not having a nervous system that doesn't experience stress, that doesn't go into fight or flight or these freeze responses. We need these responses. These are, what I would call some of our really important factory settings for responding to life and the world. But I think we all can aim for and deserve to have a nervous system that can regulate and return to kind of a calm and connected state after stress or threat. And so, yeah, this is what I would call resilience, having a nervous system that can do that. And one of the things I talk about in the book is how we can cultivate that. We're not just sort of like born with it or come out of our childhood with a set, determined level of resilience, but it's something that we can pay attention to. And then the more, we learn about our nervous systems, not just the nervous system, in general that we have, but our own, like actually learn about, what is my nervous system doing, then the easier it'll be to actually become more resilient to stress.
So what you're saying basically is that, it's normal for everyone to experience stress, but stress resilience is more about how we bounce back from feeling those stressful symptoms and then kind of clearing our head so that we can respond in the moment in like a more mindful way, especially in like
Yes.
difficult situations.
Yes, yes. I think oftentimes, when the way that we notice our stress is in
Mhm.
our mind or in our thoughts, like if we can't perform in a certain way, or we have racing thoughts or something like that, we might notice, oh, something's up. But also, we can't forget about the body, right? Because the
Right.
nervous system is that control center that tells all the other systems what to do. And so the body is a big part of that. And so, we don't just want to kind of bounce back mentally, but we want to bounce back emotionally and physically as well, and be able to notice what that's like, rather than stay up in our heads here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know so many people, myself included, that could be better at that when having difficult conversations with even just, family members that are really difficult. Everyone, I feel like everyone has some sort of familial relationship that brings them stress and kind of raises their blood pressure in the moment. So that's an amazing skill to learn. All right, let's see what other questions we are getting. Oh, this is a great question. You kind of touched on this a little bit before. How is this book different than your previous book, The Attachment Theory Workbook? It sounds like this book kind of takes things a step further and ties in our like nervous systems and how to kind of reset. Is that kind of on the nose?
Yeah, yeah, I would say it definitely takes things a step further. I think the first one was a little bit more of a basic primer, specifically about attachment styles, and just started getting people to start to think about, what is stressful in their intimate relationships, in their close relationships, and then this book, I think, answers what do we do about that, and uh, so it's a little bit more broad. I think it goes a little bit more in depth into the nervous system, and and why that is really, really related to relationships, and you can't really separate that from relationships. Like, you can't just do self-regulation, and kind of not think about relationships. I'll do that later, right? um,
Mhm.
and so what was the question? How's it different? Yeah, so it's structured differently. There's different content. It's really about, okay, how do you, um, from a more kind of like, n- you know neurological or nervous system informed perspective, how
Mhm.
do we think about the self? Which includes regulating, what's going on, and understanding what's going on in our nervous system, but also doing the things in the world that help us stay regulated, like having boundaries, like knowing what your boundaries are, like knowing what your wants and needs are, so that you can kind of direct yourself in ways and make decisions and choices in ways that don't throw you off. Because
Right.
because I think, again, there needs to be a marriage and an understanding between the mind and the body, and so we're not, just making decisions up here. We have to consult with what's going on, like, how does this affect me, and if I am dysregulated, or the stress levels are high, and they are I'm not able to sort of like uh, be resilient in this moment. What can I do about it?
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of the exercises in the book, I feel like, are so effective at walking people through that process, especially if they have done some of this work on their own. This book is mostly kind of written for the everyday consumer, but it's also has like a lot of a clinical framework, obviously. Um, so yeah, that's amazing. All right, next question. Oh, this is a good one. What are some common misconceptions about attachment styles?
Mm. I think the one that comes up most often is the idea that they are fixed, that you're born with one and it stays that way, just not much you can do about it. I mean, there is some truth to the fact that attachment styles are sticky. So, um,
Mhm.
you know, if you if you have avoidant attachment, you tend to avoid things, and then you never learn that you can actually apply certain skills to get through certain conflicts or get through things that are stressful, and so you stay kind of avoidant. So
Right.
there's something really sticky about attachment styles, but it we already know from research and just from personal experience, anecdotes, from my own practice, that people change, people grow, people can learn new skills, and this is one of the beautiful things that we've learned in the last like 30 years or so with brain imaging studies, that there is a ton of neuroplasticity in the brain, and we're capable
Mhm.
of learning, and not only capable of learning, but we can't help but learn.
Right.
Everything we do is contributing to some kind of like reinforcement or reworking of the the connections in our brains.
I'm
Okay.
glad that you mentioned neuroplasticity. Oh, go ahead.
I think I went ahead of myself, but there's another misconception that I wanted to address.
Mhm.
Oh, I think it's that certain attachment styles can't work with other attachment styles.
Mhm.
Um, like I think something I've heard before is like, oh, if you have secure attachment, you should only pair with somebody who has secure attachment in a
Right.
romantic way, or yeah, or if people with more avoidant attachment, like, oh, that's never going to work, like it's all.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think it's possible to stereotype people in that way, or the connections that can happen, because um ultimately, like, what we do when we engage in relationship and you know practice awareness and practice new skills is that we bring creativity into the equation and learn
Mhm.
and grow from those experiences, and we learn to relate better. So I- that, and also um yes. So I think also in the first book, I also, address this idea that, like, certain attachment styles together are deal breakers. There's always ways, I think, to bring, if where there's a will to relate and to build connections and nurture, strong relationships, strong bonds. There can be, yeah, strategies for getting through, certain challenges and stresses.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned about neuroplasticity is so interesting and such a good point, because there's so many people that, like I said, they're a certain way and they just feel like they're always going to be a certain way. And sometimes, the older generation can be a bit more set in their ways. But it does take work, right? Like, it takes mindfulness to try to unlearn, you know, things that you learned as a child. Maybe you had like a tough upbringing, or you had experiences as a child that now inform every decision that you make in relationships as an adult. And what I like about this book is that it breaks that down in a way that I feel like is really simple. It doesn't feel so much like this overwhelming work that you have to do on yourself. So I love that.
Mm. Yeah, I really hope that comes through, that,
Mhm.
it can be approachable. It doesn't
Right.
have to be, yeah. And also, I think one thing I try to do is infuse reminders that we need to be patient, we need to be compassionate with ourselves, and, accept where we are, because where we are is where we can build from.
I think we only have time for maybe one more question, but I think one thing, let's see what our next question is. This is okay. This is a great point. I'm a clinician. How can I use this book in session with my clients? So obviously, this is not a workbook that anybody could pick this up and find value in it, and work through the exercises, but how can clinicians use this in their work with clients as well?
Yeah, I think that, certain clinicians are going to be more comfortable with bibliotherapy and recommending resources to clients outside of the session. And so for those clinicians, I think it's going to be a great resource for that. In fact, I think that, for either couples therapy or individual therapy, this would be a great precursor, even
Mhm.
for people who are, a little bit like therapy naive or even therapy skeptical.
Yes.
They're, not going to make it into the therapy room, or they need a little bit more information. I
Mhm.
think that this is a really good resource to introduce people to the idea of, what regulation is, what we're talking about with co-regulation, why they should care, and to kind of do that, a lot of that background psychoeducation, so that you can hit the ground running when you are working with clients. Because yeah, because I think that, if you speak that kind of language in your clinical work, then this will be a good way to bridge that with clients.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much, Annie, for joining us, and for everyone watching. If you want to get your copy of I Want to Connect, it's available today wherever books are sold. But just to make it easy, you can scan the QR code at the top or go to the link at the bottom of that banner. So thanks, everyone.